Relate some really cool experience I had with Maschine this weekend. I went up to the LA 48-hour film project and I joined a team there. If you're not familiar with 48-hour film project, happens in lots of cities. And the idea is that a team puts together, they script and they film and they edit a short film in 48 hours. It's a ton of fun, and it gives me some really unique experience scoring. So what I did was I was working on the score, and I really, really liked using Maschine for the scoring, and that really surprised me. So I wanted to bring this up in case there are other producers out there who are curious and wondering what could be a workflow, right? So this is a workflow for Maschine. Now there are three huge challenges that I always face when I'm scoring, and this is true for production music as well. All right, but really scoring, this first one's totally for scoring, where you have a director and you have an editor, and that is that they always do edits and re-edits, right? So I score it, I'm really happy with it, they're happy with it, they edit it, the score no longer quite works. It's not fitting into the timing. And I want some way that I can kind of abstract my creative work away from what they are editing, so that I'm just thinking in terms of, oh, you know, there's that pensive scene, and I can come in to my studio or my creative environment, I can work out the musical arrangement for that pensive mood or for that tense mood or for that action scene, right? And I want to be able to abstract away so that I can work on the creative side of that regardless of what their edits are, and then place it exactly and very quickly, rapidly, when their edit is ready. So this constant editing and re-editing is one of the biggest challenges with scoring. It certainly comes up in the 48-hour, and I know that it comes up in any environment because editors and directors are creative people, and we're always editing and updating, right? So the second thing that, second big challenge that I face is flexibility with layering, right? So this comes in, sorry, let me close this off. This comes in when I am, I don't want to lose my machine. Hang on, where did that go? There it is. So this comes in where I've got different elements like a tambourine, let's say. And when I'm in the studio working, it all sounds really great. I love the way the layers are working, but when I put it into the film, maybe the hi-hat or this tambourine or something, it starts conflicting with the dialogue. And that is something I want to be able to change very dynamically in the moment, collaborating with the editor or director, right? So with Maschine, I can do that very easily, and I'm gonna demo that very soon. So the third thing that is kind of a big challenge for me that I want to overcome is not using a mouse, right? I endeavor more and more and more to do my music production on keyboards, to do it on interfaces, to be doing it tactilely, right? Just the way that I play an instrument. I'm playing guitar for a long time. I'm a fairly decent piano player. The more that I'm doing with my hands and it's physical, I'm keeping a beat, the better my music is and the more fun it is, so that I come into my studio in the morning and I'm ready to go. Because if I face a computer keyboard and a mouse and it's my only interface for creating music, it kind of ruins my vibe right away. Maschine has a dedicated piece of hardware. The MK3 is what I use. And it makes the whole experience musical and creative. So let's look at some demos just to give any producers out there a rough sense of what it is that I'm talking about when I talk about overcoming these three challenges with Maschine. So let's look at the first and by far biggest challenge, which is constant edits. So I've got Maschine up here behind me, and you can see I got a couple of scenes. So I've got a couple of tracks up there. I'm going to go ahead and add another track. Now let's say this track, which is labeled piano, you know, we'll say that's my piano. Let's say this track is my drums, and I can add another track over there. You know, that would be maybe percussion or some synth pads, something like that. So I've got these elements, and I can sit in my studio and I can kind of put together these scenes. Now, the reason that putting them into scenes really works so well is because I can trigger scenes from MIDI. And this was a discovery for me that was like a game changer. I know that it's used in the live performance element of Maschine. If people are using this more in like an electronic music or hip hop environment. For scoring, I just made the connection this weekend, and it is a game changer. So I've got scene 1, I've got scene 2. I could add a third scene. Let's say scene 1 is my intro. Scene 2 is like dialogue or underscore. Scene 3 is, you know, I don't know, a moment of tension or a climactic event or an action scene, right? I can create these different scenes that represent these moods or actual scenes that I know are in the movie, even if I'm not sure exactly where the cuts are. I'm not sure exactly how long each of these emotions or each of these contexts needs to play out. So now when I'm in there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a few patterns. Let's just create some kind of dummies here. And so now when I am putting together these scenes, in the studio, I can be like, oh, you know, I really like pattern 1 there as an intro. Then we're going to bring in this pattern here. And when I get to the tense thing, I'm going to change up the pattern and I'm going to bring this one in over here. So now I've got these 3 scenes that are kind of different recipes. They're different expressive musical recipes for that particular mood. And I can actually trigger that scene from within Cubase, which is my DAW of choice, using just a MIDI note. So these scenes are triggered using notes starting on C-2. So C-2 will always trigger the scene 1. C#-2 always triggers my second scene. I can rename these scenes. Let me see, where's my mouse? You know, I can rename these like this to intro. So it can be very intuitive for me when I'm looking at my Maschine hardware, and it can be very intuitive for me even creating, like, say, a MIDI event in Cubase just labeled intro, and I know that anywhere I drag that event, this scene is going to trigger. Okay, so that helps me when they give me a re-edit and the timing of the cuts, the beats within the film are different. Now I just move the MIDI triggers around. I don't have to go and do that with a bunch of tracks because all the instruments and all the tracks are here in Maschine. I've got my 3 tracks right here. Got these 3 tracks. They're all doing, the same thing that I wanted them to do in the studio when I was doing my creative work. Now I'm just firing these scenes. It's really nice, like encapsulated. I know that's my idea, right? Okay, so that solves this problem of constant edits. People bring me re-edits and I need to readjust the timing. I use Cubase. Cubase is awesome. I use the free warp tool, which I'm not going to go into in this lesson, but I probably will go into that when I discuss this in more of a tutorial way in another live stream later on, probably this week. So let's talk about the second of these 2 challenges, which is flexibility with layering. So layering, I'm in the studio and I've come up with, let's say, where have I got here? Scene 3. And let's say on this group over here, this pattern is a hi-hat or it's a shaker, something kind of high frequency, mid frequency. And when we place it into the music or place it into the film, it starts to conflict with the dialogue, and that's a problem. I can very easily just take that out, you know, boom, gone. Now my scene is still being triggered. I can adjust the timing because of the edits, and I can just take that layer out. It's no problem. I'm done. I can do that in immediate collaboration, play it for the director, and they can be like, okay, that's what I want. So it solves huge problems. And still, I just save this file, you know, I can bounce out the whole thing. It's awesome. And you'll see in my later videos, if you are a Cubase user or really any DAW, whatever DAW you're using, you'll see that using Maschine as a VST in that environment and then just like bouncing out the whole take. Even if you want to route it to different stems, it's just a piece of cake. It's so much easier, and it allows me to maintain my creative flow as a musician and an artist and a composer, but also allows me to do the heavy lifting of collaborating in real time with directors and editors to make sure the music really works with their vision as well. The final thing, I can't really say this too much. Doing things on physical instruments is just way better as a musician. I think most musicians feel this way. And I think even if you are an electronic musician, you're working with an Ableton Push, you're working with Maschine, hardware, even though those are, newer, less traditional instruments, there's still something about the tactile nature of it that makes producing music just so much more satisfying than a mouse and a keyboard. So I'm not really going to demonstrate that. You either know what I'm talking about or you don't know what I'm talking about. Now, later on this week, a couple days from now, it's Monday today, on Wednesday, I'm going to start covering these in more tutorial demonstrations. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is loading Maschine into Cubase, and it'll work in just about any DAW. I'm going to show you in the next live stream how to configure things so that you can switch the scenes using these MIDI triggers, and we'll do a little demo for that. We'll also talk about how you could route the outputs into stems, because that is really crucial for this kind of work as well. If you have any questions, please leave comments, and like and subscribe. It really helps me boost the video up. I want to reach as many people as I can. I'm happy to answer questions, and thanks so much for watching. Best of luck.